I have Clara, age 34, and this is the night everything I built almost got stolen from me by the people who share my blood. Before I tell you what happened next, stop scrolling for 1 second, because what you are about to hear is not just a story about betrayal. It is a story about a woman who was pushed so far past her breaking point that she stopped begging for love and started building a guillotine. And if you have ever been the family ATM, the responsible one, the one who was expected to give and give and give, while everyone else took and took and took, then this story is going to hit you like a freight train. I want you to picture it with me right now. 100 untouched crystal champagne flutes lined up like soldiers on velvet-draped tables. A string trio playing softly into an empty room. The catering staff quietly refusing to make eye contact because they can hear my voicemails getting more and more desperate. And a text message about to arrive that will not just break my heart, it will detonate a financial crime so massive that within 72 hours federal agents will be kicking down doors and my own mother will be carried out of her home in handcuffs. Do me one favor before we go any further. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from right now, and if you have ever had a family member treat your success like their personal winning lottery ticket. Smash that like button and subscribe because you are going to want to see how this ends. Now let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Clara, I am 34 years old, and the night I finally launched my dream company, my family decided my greatest achievement was nothing more than a stepping stone for my brother's greed. I stood alone in my newly leased 2-story office space in downtown Chicago, staring at those 100 untouched crystal flutes and the reflection of a woman in a navy suit she had saved 6 months to buy. I had invited 4 people: my father, Thomas, my mother, Barbara, my younger brother, Bradley, and his wife, Jasmine. 4 people out of the entire world who were supposed to walk through those glass doors and see what 7 years of 80-hour weeks and cheap takeout and sleeping on a mattress on the floor had finally built. Instead, I got silence. The luxury SUV driver I had hired to pick them up called me confused 2 hours before the ribbon cutting. Nobody answered the door I left. Voicemails I am ashamed of now. Mom, the ribbon cutting is in 20 minutes. Where are you guys? Bradley, did the driver get lost? Dad, please pick up. 9 o'clock came. They were not coming. My staff, quietly, packed the untouched food into containers, their eyes avoiding mine because they had heard every desperate phone call I made, and they knew what I had not yet let myself admit. I thanked them. I sent them home early. I told them to take the leftovers to their families, and when the heavy glass doors finally clicked shut behind them, the silence in that massive echoing office felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I sat down at my brand new desk. I pulled out my phone and I did the thing you should never do when your heart is already bleeding. I opened social media. Right at the top of my feed was a live broadcast from my sister-in-law, Jasmine. Cheers to our new mansion, you guys. She was spinning around a massive glittering marble kitchen island, holding up a glass of champagne I had probably paid for Bradley, and I finally closed on our dream home. We are surrounded by family tonight, and we are just so blessed. The camera panned across the crowded, lavishly decorated living room. There was my father, Thomas, laughing loudly, clinking glasses with Bradley. There was my mother, Barbara, wiping away a proud tear as she hugged Jasmine. They had not forgotten my grand opening. They had chosen against it. And I want you to sit with that for a second because that word matters. They did not forget. They chose, but here is the part that turned my grief into gasoline. Exactly 1 hour later, my phone buzzed against the polished wood of my desk. A text from my mother. For one stupid, heartbreaking second, the little girl inside me thought it might be an apology. I opened it and my blood turned to ice water. Hi, Clara. Looks like your little agency thing went okay from the pictures we saw online. Since you are making real money, now we need to talk about your contribution your brother gave you. The idea to study communications years ago. And that's without him, you would not have this company. We expect you to transfer 30% equity to Bradley by Monday morning. Consider it payback for all the times we supported you growing up. Love, Mom. 30% of the company I bled for because Bradley once told a 19-year-old girl she should study communications. I read it 3 times. I did not cry. I did not scream. Something inside me went very, very quiet, and I opened my laptop because a strange thing had been bothering me all week. A tiny notification I had been ignoring, a credit alert on an account I had almost forgotten existed. And what I found in the next 90 seconds was the moment my whole life split in two. Stay with me because this is where the floor falls out. 3 years ago, Bradley had been in a minor car accident, and my parents had begged me to co-sign a high-limit medical credit card for him to cover physical therapy and rehabilitation. They swore on their lives it would only be used for medical emergencies. I had not checked that account in months because the balance had always sat safely at zero. I clicked on the alert, the screen loaded, and a red banner burned across. The top credit limit exceeded immediate payment required. Balance $45,000. I could not breathe. I scrolled the itemized statement. There were no hospital charges. There were no pharmacy bills. There was no physical therapy. $12,000 at a high-end Italian furniture importer, $8,500 at an elite home theater installation company, $5,000 at a luxury landscaping firm, $15,000 at an upscale catering company, and $4,500 at a boutique travel agency for a couple's wellness retreat to Tulum. Every charge dated within the last 7 days. Every charge matching the exact furniture I had just watched on Jasmine's live stream. Every charge matching the catering staff I had just watched pour champagne for my parents. They had not just skipped my grand opening. They had used my emergency medical credit card to fund the housewarming party they were attending in place of it. And this was the moment I stopped being the good daughter. Because I want you to understand something about betrayal at this level. It does not make you sad. It makes you very, very calm. I closed the laptop, I picked up my car keys, and I drove 40 minutes across Chicago with my knuckles white on the steering wheel, every red light stretching like an eternity, while I decided exactly how I was going to walk into that party and set their stolen fantasy on fire. If you are still with me, hit that like button right now, because this next part is where everything changes. The valet took my keys without a word. The lobby was a cathedral of imported marble and cascading water, and everything I had paid for without knowing it. I slipped into the elevator behind a group of guests holding champagne bottles. I already knew which floor to press because Bradley had been bragging about his penthouse views in the family group chat for weeks. The doors slid open to heavy bass and laughter spilling into the private hallway. I stepped inside, and there in the middle of a living room, bathed in warm custom lighting, sat the $12,000 Italian leather sectional from my credit card statement. Mounted on the far wall was the $8,500 home theater system. The air smelled of truffle hors d'oeuvres and top-shelf liquor, courtesy of the $15,000 catering charge. And there, in the center of it all, was Jasmine holding her phone high on a ring light stabilizer, broadcasting my stolen empire to thousands of strangers. Welcome to our beautiful new sanctuary. You guys, Bradley and I have been manifesting this dream for so long. It just goes to show that if you grind hard enough, the universe rewards you. We paid for every single piece of this with sheer hustle. Hard work truly pays off. I walked across that room. Slowly, I let the ring light find me. I let the crowd part, and I stepped directly into her frame. Her fake camera-ready smile faltered. Clara, she said, her voice tight. What a total surprise. We did not expect you to show up. Bradley's face drained of color the second his eyes met mine. I am not here to party, Jasmine, I said, and my voice carried clearly over the thumping bass. I am here to collect my stolen furniture. Music seemed to stop even though it did not. The circle of influencers and socialites as went since Jasmine's ring light illuminated the sheer panic flashing across her contoured face. She fumbled with her phone, ending the live stream. But the damage was already done. Thousands of people had just heard the truth. And that is when Bradley's phone started ringing. Our mother calling from the yacht in Miami. He put it on speaker because he thought she would save him. Clara, my mother shrieked. What on earth is wrong with you? How dare you humiliate your brother's wife on the internet? Mom, he stole $45,000 from me. Oh, stop being so dramatic. Clara, it is just money. Your brother told us he was using the card to get on his feet. We gave him full permission. You gave him permission. Cannot give permission for someone else to steal from me. Do not use that word, my father boomed, suddenly joining the call. Nobody stole anything. You are jealous of Bradley. You have always been jealous. He is building a beautiful home with his wife, and you are alone with your little agency. You owe your brother this money. The gaslighting was so unified, so practiced, that for one split second, a very old part of my brain questioned my own reality, and that is exactly how they had controlled me my entire life. But not tonight. I pulled out my own phone. I did not yell. I did not argue. I dialed the fraud line on the back of my primary credit card. I put it on speaker. I held it up high. Bradley demanded, his smirk finally slipping. Welcome to Elite Financial Services. Please hold for fraud specialist. Jasmine lunged to grab my arm. You cannot call the bank, she hissed. You will ruin his credit. He ruined his credit years ago, I said coldly. That is why he stole mine. A live representative. Answer. Good evening, my name is David. Am I speaking with Clara? Yes, I said, staring into Bradley's panicked eyes. I am reporting severe fraudulent activity on my account, ending in 4492. The card has been used without my authorization for multiple massive transactions. I need the account locked immediately, pending charge flagged for fraud and completely reversed. I see several large pending charges, including a $15,000 hold for premium catering services. Would you like me to reverse that transaction right now? Jasmine gasped. No, Clara. Please, the caterers are setting up the dessert bar right now. That sounds like a personal problem, I replied. Cancel it. The card is permanently locked. David confirmed the $15,000 catering charge has been successfully reversed. Thank you, David. I ended the call, and the room exploded into chaos. The head caterer marched over, demanding a new payment. Bradley patted his pockets frantically, his cards all maxed. Out, he begged my parents on speaker for a wire transfer. They admitted they did not have that kind of liquid cash because they had been counting on the 30% I was supposed to send them. The caterer shook his head. We do not work on IOUs. Pack it up, guys. The party is over. The remaining guests grabbed their coats and made a straight line for the door. Jasmine's burst into hysterical tears, slapping Bradley on the shoulder, screaming about her ruined online reputation. And I turned around, I walked out the front door, and I took the elevator down to the lobby. The financial ties binding me to these people were finally severed, but the war was just beginning. Because what I did not know as I walked out of that penthouse was that my brother was already calling my mother to plan their next move, and their next move was going to be so cruel, so calculated, so utterly evil, that even now, a year later, my hands still shake when I remember it. If you are still watching, hit subscribe right now, because the next 24 hours changed everything. The morning after the party, I woke up before sunrise. Not because I was scared, because I had a 9:30 pitch with Naomi. Naomi was a venture capitalist known across Chicago as a ruthless force of nature. Her firm was launching a massive tech fund and needed an exclusive PR and crisis management partner. Securing her account meant a multi-million-dollar retainer. It meant elevating my company from a Chicago success story to a national powerhouse. I put on my sharp suit. I walked into my glass-walled conference room at exactly 9. Arranged the financial projections on the mahogany table. I was ready. Naomi arrived at 9:30 in a pristine cream pantsuit that whispered quiet luxury. She did not waste time on pleasantries. Your retail growth is impressive, Clara, but I need to know you can handle high-pressure execution. My investors expect perfection. There is zero room for public relations disasters. I sat straight, and I looked her in the eye. Naomi, I built this company from the ground up without a safety net. I anticipate blowback. I manage crisis before it happens, and I do not sugarcoat risks. You will not find a more stable partner in this city. The corner of her mouth twitched into a small, approving smile. She picked up her gold pen, and that is when the crash came from the reception area outside the glass walls. Please! Excuse me for one moment, Naomi. Before I could reach the door handle, the heavy glass burst open. Bradley and Jasmine stormed into my corporate conference room like a hurricane. Jasmine looked unhinged, her makeup smeared, her ring light glaring, holding her phone up in a live stream. Bradley was manic, clutching a worn manila folder, his eyes bloodshot. I am taking back what is rightfully mine, Bradley shouted, slamming the folder onto the polished mahogany, right next to Naomi's multi-million-dollar contract. I am a legal co-founder of this company, and I am here to collect my 30% equity. Right now. Naomi slowly placed her gold pen down. Her approving smile vanished, replaced by a mask of pure ice. Clara, who are these unstable people? Trespassers, I said. I turned to my receptionist call. Building security right now. You cannot kick us out of our own building, Bradley roared. He ripped open the manila folder and slammed a small wrinkled piece of paper onto the table. I have absolute legal proof you signed this, Clara. 5 years ago, I looked down at the paper he had so triumphantly presented, and I want you to prepare yourself because I promise you have never seen anything as absurd as what I am about to describe. It was not a notarized document. It was not drafted by an attorney. It was a literal cocktail napkin, a faded stained paper napkin from a dive bar we had gone to 5 years ago to celebrate my first promotion at my old corporate job. Written in my messy, drunken handwriting were the words to share all my future success with my amazing older brother. We are in this together, 30% for the idea guy, and underneath was my barely legible signature. Naomi looked at the napkin. She looked at me. She looked back at the napkin. You cannot be serious right now, I said. It is a written contract bearing your signature, Bradley insisted, pounding his fist on the table. Jasmine shoved her camera into my face. Look at her. You guys look at the cold-blooded CEO stealing from her own flesh and blood, Bradley, I said, maintaining a dangerously calm tone. A drunk scribble on a bar napkin lacks legal considerations, clear terms, and any standing in a court of law. It is not a contract. It is a piece of trash. Bradley's face turned purple. Mom and Dad are backing me up, he screamed. They will testify in open court about your fragile mental state. They will tell the judge about your histories, and that word's histories. That was the word that told me exactly what was coming next. But before I could brace for it, the security guards arrived. Sir, ma'am, you need to vacate the premises. Immediately, Bradley shoved the lead guard in the chest. It was a monumentally stupid decision. The guard did not move an inch. He grabbed Bradley by the lapels of his velvet blazer and spun him around. Jasmine screamed, a piercing theatrical scream. Do not assault me, Bradley, do something. They dragged Bradley out of the room, his shoes scraping against the hardwood floor, screaming that he was calling. Mom and Dad, they were going to destroy my reputation. I was going to lose everything. Jasmine ran after them, her heels slipping, weeping loudly for her live stream audience. The glass doors clicked shut. The silence returned, and I turned around to face Naomi. She had not moved during the entire ordeal. The multi-million-dollar contract remained on the table next to Bradley's stained napkin. Naomi, I started, my voice trembling. I cannot apologize enough. That was my brother and his wife. They have no legal claim to this agency. This will not affect my work for your fund in any way. Naomi did not respond immediately. She slowly reached across the table. She picked up her gold pen. She stared at it for a long moment. And then she placed it back inside her leather briefcase. The metallic snap of the briefcase closing sounded like a gunshot. Clara, she began, her tone completely devoid of emotion. I hired you because your pitch demonstrated exceptional crisis management skills. I cannot partner with an agency whose founder is embroiled in a viral family meltdown. Naomi, please. The live stream will not gain traction. I have already drafted a rapid response. It is not just the live stream, Clara. I received a phone call this morning before I arrived at your office. The phone call was from a woman claiming to be your mother, Barbara. My stomach dropped through the floor. My mother called you. She got past my executive assistant by claiming there was a medical emergency regarding you. Once she had me on the line, she warned me that you were under investigation for financial fraud. She claimed you were embezzling from a joint family venture and that the true legal ownership of this agency is being contested by your older brother. I felt physically sick. She lied to you, Naomi. They are broke. They maxed out my emergency credit card to fund their lifestyle. Now they are trying to extort me because I cut off their cash supply. I do not care about the details of your family drama. Clara, I care about risk assessment right now, you represent a massive liability. Your mother implied you have a history of severe emotional instability. The air was sucked out of the room. She also strongly implied I should look into your medical records before signing any contract. Then you need to deal with your extortionistness. Naomi walked out of the glass doors without looking. I stood alone in the conference room, the full unsigned contract on the table, my biggest professional victory ripped away in minutes by the people who shared my last name. I did not cry. I did not break anything. The betrayal was so absolute, so evil, that it bypassed grief entirely. Because I finally understood what my mother had implied about my medical records. And I want you to sit with this next part, Zbats, because if you have ever been the black sheep of your family, this will hit hard. 14 years ago, in my sophomore year of college, I survived something I had never told anyone outside of a hospital. I had spent 3 months in inpatient psychiatric care after a traumatic event at a campus party. I had implicitly trusted my parents with my medical power of attorney because I was physically and mentally incapable of making decisions. I believed those records were sealed forever. I drove straight to my parents' condominium, the condo I had bought outright with my own money 3 years ago to provide them with a stable retirement. I unlocked the door with my spare key. My father was in his recliner, watching daytime television. My mother was in the kitchen, unpacking a designer suitcase full of resort clothing from their yacht trip. They froze. Mom, I said, you called Naomi this morning. I did what I had to do, Clara, my mother stated, to protect this family. You sabotaged a multi-million-dollar contract. You lied to a venture capitalist. You told her I was embezzling. It is not a lie, my father interrupted. You owe your career to your brother. He is the foundational visionary of your agency. You are simply the labor. And then my mother did something that I will never forget as long as I live. She walked to the vintage oak writing desk in the corner of the living room. She unlocked the bottom drawer with a small brass key. She reached inside, and she pulled out a thick, heavily tabbed manila folder. The paper edges were frayed from being reviewed for years. She walked back across the carpet. She slammed the folder onto the glass coffee table. I looked down at the faded label, the name of my former college psychiatrist printed neatly across the top. The admission date from 14 years ago. My heart stopped. Do you remember these, Clara? My mother asked, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. These are the psychiatric evaluations from your stay at the mental health facility. They are incredibly thorough. The doctors documented your emotional volatility, your inability to cope with stress, your reliance on psychotropic medications. It paints a very vivid picture of a completely unhinged young woman. How do you even have these? I whispered. I am your mother, she stated. I made sure to request unredacted copies of before you were discharged. I knew your fragile mental state would eventually become a liability, and then she gave me the ultimatum that made my blood freeze. If you do not sign the equity transfer documents by 9 tomorrow morning, I am taking this folder directly to the print shop. I am going to scan every page. I am going to attach them to a mass email, and I am going to send that email to every corporate client on your agency website. I will also send copies to your entire staff, to the industry, blogs, to the local business magazines. Your business will evaporate overnight. Or you can simply sign the papers, give your brother his rightful 30%, and we can go back to being a happy, loving family. The choice is entirely yours. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked and ticked and ticked. I closed my eyes when I opened them again. The daughter they had relied on for 34 years was the woman standing in that living room, was someone else, someone they had made. I looked directly into my mother's eyes with a calmness that finally made her predatory smile falter. I will not be signing anything, I stated. I turned away from the folder. I stepped around my father. I walked out the front door. I climbed into my car. I locked the doors, and I sat in that driveway for 10 full minutes waiting for tears that never came. Because a phone call was too easy for them to hang up on, and a lawsuit was too slow. I needed a mercenary. If you are still watching, if you are still with me, hit that like button one more time, because what happens next is the moment the hunter becomes the hunted. 30 minutes later, I walked through the massive glass doors of Sterling and Vance, the most ruthless corporate litigation firm in the state. I bypassed reception entirely. I walked straight to the corner office of Dominic Vance. Dominic was not a family lawyer. He was a corporate shark who specialized in federal extortion cases and destroying hostile corporate raiders. I pushed open his heavy oak door without knocking. He looked up, his sharp gray eyes registering my battle-ready posture. "Clara," he said, "you look like you are preparing for a war." "I am," I replied. I locked the door behind me. "I need to formally retain your services immediately. We are skipping the cease and desist letters. Need you to prepare a comprehensive federal lawsuit. Who exactly are we destroying today?" My entire family. I laid every piece of evidence on his marble desk. The $45,000 in credit card fraud, the office ambush, the trespassing, the live-streamed harassment, and finally, the medical records, the ultimatum, the 9 a.m. deadline. Dominic stopped writing. He looked up from his legal pad, and a slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. "Clara," he said, "what your mother just did is not a family dispute. It is a textbook violation of federal extortion laws, weaponizing stolen confidential medical records across interstate digital lines to extract corporate equity is a felony combined with your brother's documented wire fraud and credit card theft. You have handed me the framework for a massive federal racketeering case. I do not just want to scare them, Dominic, because I want them neutralized." He tapped his pen against the desk. "We file an emergency ex parte injunction this afternoon, prohibiting dissemination of those records. If she violates it tomorrow morning, she faces criminal contempt. Then I unleashed my forensic friend accountants on every dollar they have ever touched." I picked up his silver pen. I signed the retainer. And I want you to remember this moment, because everything you think you know about this story is about to change. Because at 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Dominic. His voice carried an edge of genuine disbelief. "Clara, you need to come to my office right now. My team just uncovered something that changes everything." I drove straight over to forensic. Accountants were sitting at his marble conference table, surrounded by highlighted documents. "Sit down, Clara." He placed a thick red file on the table in front of me. The $45,000 in credit card. Theft is child's play compared to this. He opened the file. He slid a glossy multi-page banking document toward me. "Look at the property address at the top." I leaned forward. It was the address of the modest suburban condominium I had bought 3 years ago for my parents to live in. I bought that property outright. I said, "The deed is in my name. I pay the monthly mortgage directly. Look at the date and the loan amounts." My eyes tracked across the page and my blood turned to ice. The document was dated 4 months ago, a formal application for a home equity line of credit against the accumulated equity of the condominium approved loan, amount $250,000. "I have never applied for this." "We know you did not," Dominic said, "because you were traveling in London on a corporate press tour on the exact date. This document was notarized." He slid a second page across the table, the signature page. There in blue ink was a flawless, meticulously practiced forgery of my signature. Attached was a photocopy of my personal social security card and an outdated copy of my state driver's license. "Your parents did not just enable your brother's crimes. Clara, Thomas, and Barbara are the primary architects of this fraud. They used your identification documents, stole your social security number, and forged your signature to illegally mortgage a property you own. They committed aggravated identity theft and federal bank fraud to extract $250,000 in cash." "Where did the money go?" I whispered. The senior accountant turned his laptop toward me. $150,000 wired within 48 hours to an LLC registered to Brad, used as the down payment on his fraudulent mansion. The remaining $100,000 funneled through a shell company managed by Jasmine, funding her lifestyle and their luxury vacations. They had mortgaged my future to buy Bradley a mansion. "Add it to the federal binder," I said, my voice completely steady. "I want every forged Document every stolen tax return, every digital footprint handed to the federal authorities. Today, let them raid the mansion on a live stream. I am going to dismantle her fake empire brick by brick, but wait, because just when I thought I understood the full scope of the crime, Marcus, the senior accountant, froze. Hold on, he said. Dominic, you need to see this. I just received the subpoenaed closing documents from the lender that approved Bradley and Jasmine for their $2.5 million mansion. The math is not adding up. 150,000 is nothing on a $2.5 million property. Standard jumbo loans require 25% down. That is $500,000 in liquid cash, and even with predatory lending, they would need to prove massive monthly income. Bradley has no verifiable income. He has not filed a legitimate tax return in over 4 years. Then how did they get approved? I demanded. Dominic leaned over the monitor. It was not your parents who secured this specific loan, Clara. It was Jasmine. She applied for a commercial asset acquisition loan. She structured the mansion purchase as a corporate retreat for a successful business. Jasmine is a minor influencer. She sells detox tea, no legitimate bank rights, a multi-million-dollar corporate loan on her metrics. She does not have a real business. She used yours. The 3 words hung in the freezing air. I stood up slowly, my hands planted on the marble table. Marcus scrolled down to the corporate guarantor section. Right there in bold black ink was the name of my public relations agency, but slightly altered. Instead of Clara Communications LLC, Jasmine had registered a shadow DBA under the exact name Clara Communications Management Group. She had hijacked my brand. Look at the financial disclosures. She submitted 3 years of your corporate tax returns, your quarterly profit and loss statements, a forged letter from your actual CPA verifying $5 million in annual gross revenue. How did she get my tax returns? I whispered. Think back, Clara. Dominic said. When did she start bragging about the mansion? 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I had hired Jasmine as a temporary administrative assistant. I had given her a security key card. I had fired her 3 weeks later for filming social media content instead of working. She has a security key card, I whispered. She had unsupervised after-hours access to my private office. She photocopied my most guarded financial records off my own desk. If she defaults on this loan, and she inevitably will, the commercial bank has full legal authority to seize your business accounts to satisfy the debt. The audacity shattered whatever restraint I had left. Dominic walked around the table and stood beside me. The extortion attempt your parents pulled with the medical records was a desperate power play. But this commercial mortgage fraud is a calculated multi-million-dollar federal felony. The FBI does not investigate these lightly. They obliterate the perpetrators. I looked up at him, my eyes finally blazing with terrifying clarity. Add it to the binder, I commanded. I want the mansion raided. I am going to dismantle her fake empire brick by brick. But, Clara, he warned, federal wheels turn slowly. It will take 48 hours to secure warrants and organize raids. We cannot risk them fleeing the country or shredding documents. We need them stationary. Comfortable, arrogant. I understood exactly what he meant. I have to surrender. I stated I have to make them believe they broke me. Sonic smile turned predatory. Get them all in one room, Clara, make it public, make them feel like royalty. The higher they climb, the harder they shatter when the doors come down. I left Sterling and Vance with the completely fake, legally void equity transfer documents. Tucked inside my briefcase, I sat in my car. I pulled out my phone. I dialed my mother's number. I pinched the bridge of my nose to strain my voice. I forced my breathing to become rapid and erratic. She answered on the 4th ring. Mom, I gasped, letting a pathetic sob tear through my throat. Mom, please, I am so sorry. The line went silent. I could hear her arrogant, triumphant smirk spreading across her face. You were completely right, I wailed. Naomi canceled my contract. The business is collapsing. I cannot handle this pressure. I am having a bedandry breakdown, just like you said I would. Barbara's voice transformed to sickly sweet. Oh, Clara, my mother cooed. I told you this world was too much for your fragile state. You need your brother to stabilize the ship. I know, I whimpered. I want to legally surrender the agency to him. I want to make peace. I secured a private dining room at Laura tomorrow night at 8. I want to treat all of you to dinner. Please bring Dad, Bradley, and Jasmine. I want everyone to witness me signing the company over. Laura was the most exclusive restaurant in the city. The perfect stage for my trap. We will absolutely be there. Clara, my mother promised. Tell Jasmine to bring all of her camera equipment, I whispered. That is perfect, my voice shaking with fake gratitude while a cold smile spread across my face. In the empty car, I ended the call. The sobbing stopped. Instantly, like flipping a switch, the trap was set. I spent Saturday morning in focused silence. I bypassed my conservative black suits. I selected a custom-tailored deep crimson blazer and matching trousers. The color of fresh blood. I paired it with razor-sharp black stilettos and minimal geometric gold jewelry. I wanted them to see exactly who was destroying them. While I prepared for the execution, my family was actively broadcasting their delusion to the entire internet. Jasmine, in a VIP salon chair, champagne on the counter. Get ready with me for the biggest night of my life. Bradley, in a luxury boutique, adjusting a $50,000 Rolex. When you build a multi-million-dollar empire, you dress like a king. My father puffing on a Cuban cigar next to a rented town car. A real company needs a strong patriarch to guide the ship. My mother in a designer evening gown. Family is everything. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions to guide your children back to the right path. I set my phone down on the granite counter. I did not feel angry anymore. The rage from yesterday had solidified into something else. Cold clinical detachment. And I was looking at 4 parasites who had convinced themselves they were predators. They had built a glittering castle out of stolen gasoline, and I was holding the only match. My phone buzzed, a text from Dominic. Federal warrants signed by the judge. Strike teams assembled and holding position. Commercial bank has frozen every account tied to their fraudulent LLC. The guillotine is locked and loaded. Enjoy your dinner. I typed one word, understood. 7 p.m. 1 hour until the curtain rose on the final act. I grabbed the leather briefcase containing the legally void transfer documents. I walked out of my apartment. My stilettos clicked against hardwood like the ticking of a clock. The drive to Laura was peaceful. The city lights blurred past my windows. I handed my keys to the valet. The host greeted me. Your private dining room is already. Guests arrived 20 minutes ago. They are enjoying premium cocktails and filming the interior decor. Please ensure the main doors remain slightly ajar. I said I am expecting important secondary guests to arrive at 8:30. They will not need a reservation. The host nodded. I could hear Jasmine's shrill laughter echoing from the private hallway. Before I even reached the room, I stopped just outside the heavy wooden doors. I took one final breath. I pushed them open. I stepped into the lion's den. Jasmine was holding her phone high, broadcasting the seafood towers and vintage champagne bottles they had ordered on my tab. And here is the woman of the hour, she announced to her live stream. Clara is finally doing the right thing. She is officially handing the CEO title to my brilliant husband, Bradley. Sat at the center of the table in a ridiculous custom silk tuxedo. My parents flanked him, matching looks of pure smugness. They looked at my sleek suit and mistook my calm for submission. I brought the transfer documents, I stated. Dominic stepped into the room behind me. He looked like an apex predator in his charcoal suit. He carried a heavy reinforced metal briefcase, not filled with contracts, filled with federal evidence. Good, my father grunted. Have your lawyer set it up. I took my seat. Dominic sat next to me. The waiter poured sparkling water. Dominic did not touch it. His gray eyes scanned every hostile actor at the table. Make sure you get a perfect angle of the signing, Bradley ordered his wife. The internet needs to see how a real leader handles an acquisition. I looked directly at my brother. Oh, do not worry, Bradley, I replied, a chillingly calm smile forming on my lips. The internet is going to see everything. Tonight, Dominic did not touch the leather briefcase on the table. He unlatched his metal case. The mechanical click echoed across the private dining room. He pulled out a massive stack of documents stamped with the seal of the United States Department of Justice. He slammed the entire stack onto the white tablecloth in front of Bradley's untouched appetizer plate. These are not executive transfer agreements, Dominic announced. These are federal indictments. Thomas and Barbara, you are officially charged with felony identity theft and mortgage fraud. Bradley and Jasmine, you are facing multiple counts of commercial bank fraud, wire fraud, and corporate identity theft. The federal field office is currently securing its warrants. The silence was deafening. Jasmine's phone, still broadcasting to her live audience, slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the hardwood floor. Bradley's smirk melted into a sickening shade of pale gray. My father's voice cracked. This has to be a joke. We are family. You forfeited the right to call me family the second you stole my social security number. To fund your retirement, I replied. And you, Jasmine, hijacked my public relations agency to fraudulently purchase a $2.5 million mansion you could never afford. The commercial bank has been notified your corporate asset loan is in default. Federal agents will physically seize the property by tomorrow morning. Jasmine recoiled as if she had been electrocuted. I am not going to prison. For you, she shrieked, pointing at Bradley. You told me this was legal. You told me your sister owes this money. I filing for divorce. Tomorrow, Bradley just sat there paralyzed. My parents gasped for air. The trap had snapped shut. I calmly stood up. I signaled the waiter, who rushed over with the leather-bound check presenter. I took the small black booklet. I tossed it lightly onto the center of the table directly on top of their federal indictments. Enjoy the celebration, I said, my voice smooth and perfectly victorious. The bill is exactly $3,000. I strongly suggest you pay in cash, because your credit cards are about to be frozen by the federal government. I turned my back on the chaos. I walked straight out of the private dining room, leaving them trapped in the wreckage of their own creation. And I want to tell you what freedom feels like, because a year later, I can tell you exactly. Bradley's illusion shattered when federal agents kicked down the doors of his fraudulent mansion. The live stream of the morning raid went viral, obliterating whatever public dignity he had left. Jasmine tried to trade state's evidence for a reduced sentence. It did not work. She is currently serving 54 months in a federal penitentiary. Bradley was forced into Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He lives in a cheap studio on the outskirts of the city, working a minimum wage retail job to cover his court-ordered restitution and receipts. My parents did not fare better. The primary lender foreclosed on their house to recover the stolen home equity funds. Evicted by the county sheriff on a freezing January morning, carrying their possessions in plastic garbage bags. They cannot even secure a standard checking account because their federal crimes destroyed their credit history. Meanwhile, my agency experienced an explosion of growth. The federal indictment served as an unexpected marketing campaign. Elite corporate clients flocked to my brand. They wanted a female founder with the ruthless capability to dismantle a fraud scheme. From the inside out, I had transformed a horrific betrayal into a testament of my executive strength. Naomi called me 8 months after the dinner. She signed the multi-million-dollar contract without another word. But I want to tell you the part that hurt the most. Because at the end of all of this, after the federal raids, after the bankruptcies, after the sentencing, my mother wrote me a letter from her dilapidated duplex. Just one sentence. We only wanted what was best for you. Not I am sorry. Not I love you. Not I was wrong. We only wanted what was best for you. I read it once, I read it twice. And then I did something I could not have done a year ago. I did not cry. I did not respond. I did not tear it up in anger. I simply folded it in half. I placed it in a drawer, and I closed the drawer. Because I finally understood something I want every single one of you to understand. Some people will never see you, no matter how much you bleed for them, no matter how much you build for them, no matter how much you love them. They will only see the shape of what you can give them, and the day you stop giving, they will call you the monster. But you are not the monster. You are the person who finally stopped feeding. When I sit in my corner office now, I look out through the floor to ceiling windows at the sprawling city skyline. The anxiety that haunted me my entire life is gone. I no longer carry the parasitic burden of my family's bottomless greed. I severed the rotting branches of my family tree, and in doing so, I gave myself the space to finally thrive. Empire is mine, and no one will ever take it from me again. If this story moved you, if this story reached some part of you that has been waiting for permission to walk away from people who only love you, when you are useful, then I need you to do 3 things for me right now. Hit that like button because it tells the algorithm to show this story to someone else who needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe if you have not already, because there are so many more stories like this one, and I do not want you to miss a single one. And most importantly, leave a comment below and tell me one thing. Who is the person in your life you finally walked away from? Or who is the person you are still trying to find the courage to walk away from? I read every comment. I see every one of you. And I want you to know something. Before I go, you are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not broken for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for cutting ties with people who only bleed you dry. You are free and freedom looks good on you. I will see you in the next story.